This is Fbg.Live. From touchdowns and concerts to weddings and Christmas parades. Live video production right here in Fredericksburg, Texas. Live, local, here for you. Fbg.Live, capturing your moment for generations to enjoy.
Community in Fredericksburg is growing, and we know that people choose to live here, and for very good reason. It's important that we have resources in place so that people can take care of themselves, so that our economy can keep moving, so that this community can continue to thrive. And this is our opportunity to help them stay well and stay part of the community as contributing members.
Please join us in keeping Fredericksburg and Gillespie County special. Be Texas friendly. Share the road. Put litter in its place. Respect private property. And protect our dark skies. Thank you for caring about our community.
I guess we're ready to go. Good to go. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I was trying to give it a little bit more time so we could fill up the room with a few folks that were stragglers walking in. So I thank you for being here this morning. I think a lot of people are on vacation, maybe, I'm hearing. The weather's finally getting nice, maybe. So just quickly, I wanted to point out a couple of council members, current council members that are with us today. We have Bobby Watson, and I saw Emily Kirchner in the back, current council members. We have a number of former council members in the audience as well. So we do have a special guest speaker with us today, and I know I'm going to miss the title, so David's going to have to get up here and correct me probably. David Shields, Executive Director at the National Museum of the Pacific War, is going to be presenting on what is going on, what is coming up at the museum today. So we'll kick off the presentation with David. We also have a number of updates on items that are coming up, mainly. Talk a little bit about council meeting coming up, the council meeting we just had on the 7th, and a special meeting agenda that we're trying to build with the council, some of those topics that we'll be discussing throughout the rest of the year into next year. With a couple of other items added in. So with that, David, I'm going to go ahead and get you up here and let you go with your presentation. So again, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Hey, everybody can hear. Oh, yes, you can. All right. I love this microphone. It's like a Merv Griffin, you know, big old like studio microphone. Okay. What I have here, I have 45 slides. I always joke off, that's always like a classic joke. But I do have a number of slides, but I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but I want to leave room that you all may have some questions. I mean, our museum is your museum. I know you're so proud of it, and we are very proud to be your stewards of your museum. We know it's a national museum, but foremost, it is a local museum that's been here since the 1960s, and we always are reminded of that this is your museum, and we come here to make sure that we preserve that memory of Chester Nimitz and all the people that served in the Pacific War. Oops, sorry. I feel like I don't want to give you a disease, Bobby, but it's going to go through your body. So this is our beautiful museum. So nothing is changing here in terms of the exterior. We are influenced by all these amazing organizations. If you take a look at all of these these logos, we are affiliated with these organizations. So when we're getting ideas and go to these conferences and we meet with these wonderful people, these are the organizations, these are the business associations where we're getting national and international ideas. And these are all top organizations all around the country. And what do? So what we're trying to do is find out how we evolve and change based on our visitor expectations. And these are just some of the key things that we learn from them through surveys. Going to these conferences, we speak to other museums and the feedback that they get. And this isn't just kind of casual things. These are in-depth analysis that these other museums and these associations are doing on our behalf. That's the point of being part of these professional associations, is to find out what's going on. And some of you have been around here long enough to know that the last time we did this big renovation, when we opened up the museum, was December 7th, 2009. General Hagen reminded me, I don't know if you know this, but President George Herbert Walker Bush was supposed to parachute in. Did y'all know that? That was the big exciting thing, that he was planning to do it right there in the center of town. That didn't work out because of inclement weather. But he was there with Governor Perry, and it was a big, big situation. Not to worry, Chief, it's going to be a lot smaller deal this year. We're planning about 500 people, not the 4,500 that came about 15, 16 years ago. But anyway, what we're trying to do is is to make sure that our museum reflects the best technology, what people want. First thing I want to look at before I show you what the Bush is going through and what we're planning to do next year and the year beyond is tell you a really exciting thing that we did regarding repatriation. You may have heard of this word in different venues. In the idea of museum world, what it talks about is that when you have an artifact and you have been displaying it and you have been interpreting it, it may be something from somewhere else. Let's say, for instance, this chair. Let's say that we discovered this chair in a different country. It had been in a jungle somewhere, and we discovered it hidden in a certain place. We brought it back to our country, we restored it, and then we found the story behind it, and then we interpret that. But as time goes by, that host country, they have the means and the wherewithal to interpret that chair in its natural environment. And then they say to us, we would like to have that chair to connect to all the other chairs that are just like it, and it's almost like it's a train. It connects with all the other chairs around that table to complete their story in their country. May we please have that chair back. That would be an example of cultural interpretation, and that makes perfectly good sense. So we had an opportunity to do that with our Type 97 Chi-Ha tank, which we've had since the early 1970s. That was also a situation that was discovered earlier, was brought to our attention, and we had been interpreting it on our living history battlefield. But we have many, many what we call macro artifacts. They're a large artifact, and we simply didn't have the means to put the money in it to take care of it. We had painted it, we made it look nice, it was static, it was part of our background, but we just couldn't give it the means and the attention to take care of it. Well, this gentleman right here, he is Masahiko, and he was from this Defense Technology Museum, and they are like this table. They are creating a museum to collect all of the artifacts that would make their museum complete. And he said, we would love to have that museum, that tank to come back to complete our cultural artifacts, and we have the money and means to do it. And we said, we would love to do that. Well, I'm so excited. Here we go. We would love to do that. And what was amazing, it culminated in this opportunity to give it back. The current Prime Minister of Japan, actually way up there, he attended the event. That's how important they took it. The Defense Minister of Japan was there. He was involved in it. And just 3 weeks ago, I received a letter from the Minister of Economic Affairs thanking us because this museum is about to open up. So that's exciting. This here, these are a couple of people that are part of THC, who we also partner with ANF. So I just want to let you know that's the length and breadth and the international exposure of your local museum has all around the world, that Japan and some of the top people and the Japanese government are aware of what we do. So there's the tank, by the way. It's not there anymore, but that's where it was. They're very proud to have it. And now it's getting the attention, TLC, and the interpretation that it deserves. So the next things I want to talk about very quickly are these about 7 different points. These are the things that we've been doing in the Bush renovation since 2021. So the first one was the children's exhibit. Most of you, I hope, had a chance to see it because it's free. This is one of those things that you can come into the Bush Gallery on the east side of the exhibit area, walk in there, hang a right, and it is free. We will not charge you for it. It is pretty cool, and it's the model of what we're doing for the entire Bush Gallery. There are lots of what we call virtual reality characters that help interpret that area. This is designed especially for kids, probably from 6 to 11 years old. So we make sure that when you're interpreting artifacts, it's either what we call a global audience, which is 6 to 96, or it targets a particular group. So we never dumb something down for a particular group or make it too intelligent or too complex. This is targeted for kids because we wanted to make sure kids had a way to understand the Pacific War from their point of view. So this is what this is designed for. And this opened up in February of 2023. And by the way, just take a note of this in your head. If you have any questions, we can come back and take a look at this. We also focused on education. Education is hugely important to us. How we can reach out in a formal way to schools when they come here or digitally to wherever they are. We reach tens of thousands of students all across the United States through our webinars and our online digital programs. And one of the things we had to do, some of you may have recalled that for a long time we had something called the temporary gallery, where it was a wonderful space where we could bring in temporary galleries that would come to us with their displays and their artifacts. And from time to time we had some amazing artifacts. One of the last ones was Japanese teenagers and their clothes and some of the artifacts they had during the Pacific War. Unfortunately, there just wasn't enough of it on a regular basis that we were getting the traction we needed for that huge, wonderful space. So we turned that space into, this was the concept drawings. It goes from this to looking like this exactly. So this is our children's our classroom, which we use in that space. And we also were very conscious of the people who are the physical human beings that work here. We named this after Brian Degner, who was the longtime education director at our museum. And the other last one that we did before we were going to open up the Bush Gallery was the rescue. You've heard a lot about this probably in our local press and media. The rescue is a true story. In 1944, the USS Cavalli, a submarine that went and rescued Americans and Filipino families that were evading Japanese military troops that were trying to hunt them down on the island of Negros in the Philippines. It's a true story. It takes 22 minutes to go through it with the docent. You go through a hut where you learn the story. Then you go through the jungles where you're being chased down by them, by these virtual reality characters, and then you go into a submarine, you go underwater, you get attacked by depth charges. Oh, it's all very exciting. And then you go up and you make it to Australia. Very cool story. I don't know if we have the tech. Do you think we have the technology to do this? I'll see if we, oh, anyway, while we're determining, this is how you get into it. That's the hallway down to it. And this is the supporting submarine exhibit, which does our STEM lab. You can learn how the propulsion of it works, how the inside of a submarine looks like, where the gallery and where the torpedoes are. And I don't know if this would work. We're just going to see maybe, oh, it can work. Well, that's a little tiny little clip of what it looks like, but yeah, it's pretty fun. You sit on this, when you're in the submarine part, it's on a platform, so it makes you feel like you're diving, going underwater, and you come up and water splashes on you. It's pretty cool. I like it. So part of that comes from the experience of understanding that you have to reach people in different ways. Some people love to read panels. They get information that way. Others Others like the characters to come to life and talk to you. Some people like to be immersed in it. Some people like to tactile, to touch things. So we try to find out where everybody wants, so you ensure that everyone leaves the experience inspired and understanding the relevant value. For me, the most important thing about our museum is about freedom. That there was a time in American history where we realized that freedom was at risk, and we had to come together as a country to fight and defend it. And the relevant value of that is that today, freedom is always at risk, and why we always have to be on guard for it. So to me, that's an important value for our story. Here's our Bush Gallery, what it looks like right now, and then I'm going to just take you through. This gives you like an overview. This is just a standard overview picture. There's like millions of these I've been looking at. And this just happens to be some random, this was telling me something I have no idea what it means anymore now. This was just telling me some closets that were being put in. But look at these, like millions of these every day. But this just gives you an overview of what we look at when we have to remove walls. To give you one idea, in 2009, when this gallery was opened, the public wanted a weekend experience. That's what they wanted. They wanted to be able to come to the museum and enjoy an entire weekend. So this was designed, and you can, I don't have, this probably does have an arrow, but you could walk through this, and we had enough panels to read and look at to take you an entire weekend. Now, some people are like, that's great. Other people are like, oh no, right? So, but now the public doesn't want that. Now the public wants to come to Fredericksburg, enjoy the wineries in the county, enjoy the restaurants, enjoy the shopping, enjoy Enchanted Rock, enjoy the other cultural things in town, and do all of that in the weekend. How do we get our wonderful story connected to all those wonderful things that Fredericksburg and Gillespie County has to offer? Well, we took all of that information and compressed it down into a 2-hour experience. That's really hard. If you all remember when you wrote a paper for your teacher or your professor and they gave it back to you and said, fix it. That's a lot harder than that they just said redo it, you start from scratch. Because then you're like, how do I fix it? Because that was a great sentence and that's a great sentence and you want me to fix it? So we took basically 180 words and got it down to 60 words for each panel. So it was really, really huge. But anyway, we think it's going to be great. So here's just some of the ideas that we're doing. Now, when you get to the B-25, this is an example of Doolittle's plane. You're now, which used to have a gate or a fence that kept you from getting to it, now you're going to be able to get underneath it. And you're going to have film all along the wall that interprets this, whereas before you were away from it. Now we're going to let you get right up close to it. So this is just an example of it being fixed. Before our tank, our midget sub was used to interpret Pearl Harbor, where we've created an entirely new display where you come and you're in the midst of Pearl Harbor attack with planes flying around you, and this is separate. Now we're creating a situation where even it's a new floor and sand where the submarine is being interpreted when it was discovered when it crashed. And Masahiko, who was the ensign who was discovered, the only one that survived, the first POW for the Americans of the Pacific War, he interprets his experience. He actually came to Fredericksburg in 1994 as part of one of our symposiums. So that's kind of an interesting story. But he's going to interpret that rather than a panel display. So that just gives you an idea of some of the things we're doing. This is the Aleutians, so this is going to have a snow environment. These are the battle sequences. These are all being upgraded. So when you go to different parts of the exhibit, you get to see the battles unfold with brand new software and technology. We have about 7 different exhibit technicians or companies. This one is from Bowen from Ohio. We're using a totally new color palette in graphics, whereas before it used to be black and red, I think in dark tan. We've changed it. Now it's light blue and whites, a lot of uplifting. We've taken a lot of the internal non-load-bearing walls away, so it's much wider and open. So you don't have that same kind of experience where you're walking around like kind of like that. It's much more open, and it's also designed when you come in with school groups. They can now, like you might notice in other museums, particularly art museums, where groups can sit off to one side and the teacher or a docent can then take a moment to interpret something and not interfere with the rest of, like if you all are just individuals walking through, that doesn't interfere with your experience. But there's enough room now to do that, whereas before you felt like you were in a constant hallway. So we've made an improvement there. And then the last, another thing we want to talk about is, you know, we get anywhere between 1.3, 1.5 million people coming to Gillespie County and Fredericksburg, and we're trying to get more of those people into the museum. We want our fair share of those people. So our target is about 10%. We want to get about 150,000 people to come through the front door of the museum. Now we get a little bit, but last year, I mean, everyone's had a rough time this past year and the year before for various reasons, and we got maybe about 110,000 people coming through the Bush. Not this year, because this year, you know, the gallery's been closed for about 4 or 5 months. But before that, we were getting about maybe 107,000, 108,000 people, not including our program admissions. Those are special things that we do down at the Pacific Combat Zone. But just coming through regularly through the admissions front desk at that lobby that you saw. And we need 40,000 extra people. How do we do that? Well, all those people, according to the geofencing, are walking down Main Street. They're coming straight down Main Street, and they're looking right, and they see the Nimitz, and they see the National Museum of the Pacific War, and they go, well, that's a cute little that's a cute little museum. And they don't realize that of our 3 galleries, the big one, the George Bush, is on Austin Street. So what do we do about that? The big gallery is on the wrong street. So we've got to try to get people to go from Main Street to Austin Street. So we have a Main Street project that we're developing and we'll work with the museum on. So this is an idea, if you can look up here, between our museum store, the Nawal building over here on the left, and then the Nimitz Hotel on the right. We want what we call Nimitz plots, and you see old Nimitz right here, 8-foot version of him. We want to create this archway that will bring people in through the middle. And then this is a color version, but this is going to be a black and white version of some images that will move during the day that will show some classic images of the war and bring people in. When they come in, we're going to create some more interior walls for more plaques. These plaques commemorate people and divisions and ships that were actually in the war. This is an important source of revenue for the museum as well. So we're always trying to support the THC and their support for us as contributors to the success of the museum. And then we've commissioned all of these statues, these life-size statues that are designed. Here's Nimitz right out here at the beginning, and then we have all these other statues that are designed to walk you through all the way. Oh, there we go. Good, I found it. To walk you all the way through to the east entrance of the Bush. This is the Bush Gallery here. So you're walking here, and there's that entrance, and there's Nimitz right here, and there's the entrance. To walk you through, and you go like, oh, there's the classic rubber, what do you call it? Recycling, thank you. I'm already having that problem. That's a concern. Recycling drive person is a little kid, like 11 or 12-year-old. And we made sure that although these are real people here, we made sure that when we sculpt them out, they're not real people so that we don't run into that problem. But so there he is, he's there. Oh, I'm gonna look at him. Then we have a black sailor here that looks like Dory Miller, and he's right next to the Pearl Harbor wall. But he isn't Dory Miller, but he looks like him. And then we see a Marine service dog with the service dog, but he's just looks like a person, but not the actual person. So we just don't want to make sure that we're running into any problems like that. So anyway, you keep walking through, you're seeing the plaques, then you see how then you're driven this way, this way, that way. Then you see someone writing, and you're continually driven this way with these images until you get here. That's one of the ideas. Over here, oh, good, that worked. We're reverse. We're going to create a small Nimitz cafe. Nothing too elaborate. We know we have lots of things to eat here, but while people are here, we want them to have something simple, maybe just like a Nimitz hot dog or a coffee, so they don't leave while they're here, that maybe they'll get something to eat. We're going to create a new gazebo, push it back further, and move them through this way. And then here, this is pretty cool here. So we've taken down some trees already along. I'm a big tree person, but they were dying. So fortunate that they were dying. And we didn't poison them either. They were naturally dying. So we've taken these trees down, and see these giant portraits? They're going to be put up there on steel, like a steel base. And these are what the images are going to look like. And you've seen some of them, like this is the famous kind of black rosy riveters. But all these other images you've never seen before. And they represent different phases of the war, and they're going to go up there. And this is how we kind of designed them, and this is where we were choosing. We had lots of them from our archives that we chose them. So they're going to be pretty cool. And then the other one is the Japanese Garden of Peace. This was donated to us in 1976 by the Japanese government. And this is the pipe pumping system, which is really old and has to be replaced. And Togo's study is showing some wear and tear, and we have to redo that. And then the Nimitz Hotel itself, if you've looked at it, you'll find it's kind of strange. The pillars that hold it up have twisted. And my office is right there, so it's a concern to me. So I made sure that that was on the budget to be fixed. And about a year ago, someone crashed into the building too, so I just want to have a real review of the safety of the building. So anyway, we'll repaint it and fix some things here. And then there's the bathhouse right there. It also needs to be fixed up. And then the last thing, that's just a really new super graphic of George Bush that's going in there. I think that'll be really cool. And this is just a picture of one of our workers and a volunteer helping him work on one of our tanks, because it really takes all of our volunteers and the members of our community through donations, your support to make this work. So thank you all very much.
Just a quick reminder, if you do have a question for Dr. Shields, please raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. Our audience at home can hear your question.
Wait, a quick history lesson. Tony, Connie, Max, the Bush Gallery was our HEB. In this
That's right.
No parking, that was for sure.
Since you've taken all those trees down that were dying, what are you putting up for shade to replace that?
Well, they were dying, and that section of the plaza, they were actually a problem because they were covering our plaques, and the birds were sitting there and they were living there. Yes, and while they were living there, they were causing issues for our plaques. And so we were concerned that what was really important that our visitors were enjoying most was seeing how we were commemorating the services of the people who served in the war as we represented those sacrifices by the plaques. And the plaques were being damaged and destroyed by the presence of the birds. So since the trees were dying and and then the limbs were falling on the people, we had to get rid of the trees. Then we thought, well, what should we do? And then we thought, well, we can interpret more of that war through those images. On the other side of the plaza, we have 4 large trees. So there are 4 large trees that are providing shade and cover and benches on that side. So we figure, like everything in life, it's not a zero-sum black or white. We had to figure on that side, the trees were dying, and when they were alive, they were causing problems. So on that side, we have a better interpretation of the war and taking care of the plaques. On the other side, we have tree cover and protection, and those trees are living, and we're doing our best we can take care of it. Not in that particular section. If you've been there, you'll know that ahead of it, there is the memorial garden, and there's trees to the left of it. In front of it, there's trees going into the entrance to the bush. And then where we showed you where the Nimitz Cafe, there's a giant big tree there. So that one section where you might call it the Allied Plaza, there are flags flying there. So it would be a difficult place to eventually put mature growing trees because we've designated that area for I think 6 flags to fly there. So we made that choice many years ago to represent the Allies through that plaza of flags flying. So maybe the trees made a sacrifice for us, I don't know, but not to make glib of it, but they were dying, and that is the Allied Plaza for the trees.
I'm just worried that if it's too hot there, people blaze on through and not get the benefit of what you're trying to portray.
That's true, and there is no way to get around the fact that July, August, and September at between 12 and 2 o'clock, there is nothing. Even if the trees had air conditioning units in the trees, people are not staying out there anywhere in Fredericksburg. That's my experience. But you're right. But at that point, they are just moving. You're right. Yes, sir.
My dad is World War II, Normandy, and we have a program with his outfit where in both Belgium and Normandy, they're finding artifacts like helmets. And the effort is to look at the initials in the helmet and return it to the descendants over here. And when you mentioned returning the tank to Japan, I was wondering if a similar program is in work where helmets or rifles or whatever that have the initials in them or the serial numbers in them to be returned to the descendants of that veteran.
Most of all those kinds of items were donated by families, and there was a very detailed loan process. So the families donated those items. We don't have a lot of items that were just, so in other words, all the items we have were through a loan accession process. So the provenance was known by the person giving them to us. That tank was from almost like a public domain was given to us. So that was a little bit different than from a private helmet. In other words, you were describing...
Somebody finds it on their property
exactly.
over in the Philippines, and can you facilitate that?
But you know, but
to,
right. Yeah. So most of our items aren't like that. Most of our items were personally donated by family, so they don't fit in that category. But you make a good point about the difference about our museum than, say, like a National Archives museum. Our museum is really based on the smaller version witness accounts. Like all of our archives are diary entries. They are letters home rather than big picture story of the war that might be found in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. When researchers come to our museum, what they're fascinated in is what was it like for the average soldier, Marine, and Navy person fighting in that war, riding home to their families. There, over a 3-year period, they look at all the diaries and the letters going back and forth, and they get that review and account of the war rather than just the top-down account from the military generals and admirals working out the war with the Secretary of War and the President. So our account of the war is very different, and our archive collection represents that. It's very much from that level. Our collection mostly represents that level, except for the large macro artifacts, so very few families would have a B-25 to donate. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Oh, Randy's right, someone right behind you.
Thank you. How are you using, or are you using AI to integrate to customize maybe a tour?
Extremely carefully. That's a great question. We just had that question yesterday when looking at a piece of artwork, photography. It's interesting you say that. So I'm glad you asked that because it's a great way to respond to that. We take it extremely seriously. So here was, so part of that AI would not at all affect the actual artifact. We have to leave the artifact alone. Now, what we might use with AI would be, we would use a character, a facsimile of that character that we would make sure you know is the facsimile that's interpreting a piece of work. So if, for instance, we're trying to interpret a character later in life, or someone who looks similar to the real character, that person would be denoted as this is not the real person, but they're interpreting that person. But in terms of if this were the artifact, we would be very careful how we showed you this as an image in terms of AI, because then you're in the world of fakeness. We never want you to think that what we display and interpret is fake. And it even came down to yesterday when we were looking at a big picture that we were going to use embedded in an interpretation of two men that were on a telephone pole, and they were stretching up wire somewhere in the Pacific Island. And part of the image had to be just the edge of it. It was just sky. We had to use AI or digital enhancement to continue the sky. But it wasn't real. And our curator and the exhibit designer from Story and Reason said, we have a problem with that because you are using the original picture and you're enhancing it with fake image connected to it. It wouldn't have mattered. It's just sky, but we wouldn't let it happen. So that means we had to redesign how that picture is presented. So we're very careful that AI is never introduced to the real artifact, image, picture, or anything else. Yes?
What about, I've used your database before where you can look up a family member or someone particular. So using AI to track your family members' involvement and incorporating that through your tour.
Is this something like that you've done through Sons and Daughters or through Tributes? I'm just trying to think of what database you're referring to, or oral histories?
At the museum, I've looked up my grandfather who served and had information. So
I'm just not sure how AI would be incorporated with your experience in the museum. Because sometimes that word AI is used a lot, and it's a red flag sometimes of what that actually means.
It's more the customization of your tour that you can take the AI and it would design a plan. Here's my grandfather. He served at these locations, these ships, and it would print out your itinerary through the museum.
Now that sounds like that's real.
Yeah, but you're using the data from the AI to collect. So it's not artificial, it's real. It's just using the web and instantaneously.
Right. Now, maybe we could talk offline. I just want to make sure that we're very careful, because I think a lot of people understand that term differently, and for us, it's like the third rail. We're we want to make sure you know that this is not the real clicker, and then this is the real clicker. We never want to blend it together. For instance, if you say you're going on an AI tour with data, that scares me because the data is either real and your tour is real, or it's not. And so, but what we can do is we can custom-made real data to help you find exactly where your relative is within the exhibit area. That is a really cool thing, and our docents love to do that. They love to tailor-make that experience just right for you. That's what makes it so much special. And if you can leave our exhibit feeling like the exhibit or the stories talk to you, then we did our job. If you leave going like, what was that all about? Then we have not done our job. And you know that if you're going through there and someone's saying, oh, there were 10,000 tanks and there were 1,600 tons of ships and there were this many torpedoes, that's not what we wanted. Some people like that stuff. And we'll have QR codes for you to do that deep dive if you like it. But what we're trying to do is find an experience, kind of like what you're describing, but even if you didn't have a family member that served, but you somehow or another can see, like in those images that you saw along that wall, that you can see yourself in the war, that I could have done that, or I understand what they went through. And I thought a little bit more about what you said. Remember, the key thing that we're doing with that Main Street entrance project is to bring you into the bush. So we actually don't want you to go out there and spend out too much time because you're not giving us any money. we want you to go like, man, it's hot. That's a nice air-conditioned building in there.
David, thank you. This is really, really impressive work, and I know it takes a long time to put all this stuff together. I was just curious, we went through the museum in New Orleans recently, and a different display of the story, and I think we do a better job here. Personally, I'm a little biased, but I'm just curious, is there a formal, informal relationship with that museum, sharing of assets and artifacts and stories? Is there a relationship there?
Right, it's an informal relationship. We're both members of the American Alliance of Museums, and we both work with the Smithsonian. I went there 2 years ago with a group of people from our museum, and then they came last year. So we work with each other, we collaborate. They share with us their strategies, their techniques. They talk about mobile versions of revenue, how you can change the revenue price at different times of the day or different times of the week. And you all know that sometimes we struggle to get that consistent visitation through the week, that sometimes Monday through Wednesday we see a drop, sometimes. We see a drop Monday through Wednesday. And so a lot of our businesses would like certainly see more of a consistency, maybe not Friday, Saturday all the time, but certainly a consistency through our businesses. And then we talk with their museum in New Orleans, how they structure their admission pricing to fluctuate, to meet that need, so that maybe instead of having a Saturday price on Monday, they can change that price a little bit lower to encourage more visitation. So we talk about admission price strategies like that, and we don't see ourselves competing. You've been to that museum. It's a huge museum because those giant buildings are multiple layers, and that's focused on both the Pacific and the Atlantic War. It seems to me mostly on the Atlantic, but ours is very much focused on the Pacific. We have a lot more artifacts just on the Pacific, but we share different types of membership strategies, development strategies, artifact strategies, working with education. We do all those things. So it's an informal relationship because we do not see ourselves as competitors. There's a really good feeling in the museum world that we want to share all of our stories together. And did you know that even today, of all the institutions in the United States, that museums remain one of the most trusted institutions in the United States by the general public? And we want to make sure that that's a guarded privilege that we have and we don't abuse that. So we remain apolitical. We have a bias in terms of the interpretation from a scholastic point of view, but we remain apolitical. We want to be a safe, neutral place for you to see the story so that you have an opportunity through our presentation of the facts to interpret those outcomes for yourself. And the National World War II Museum does the same thing. Yes, sir. Any other questions? Well, we really do want to encourage you to come and see us. We have our big grand opening on December 6th, and it's free. We don't say that very often because we definitely, after 5 months being closed, we need to make some money pretty soon. So on December 6th, we have our grand opening at 10 o'clock in the morning. And the city's been very gracious to us to let us close Austin Street for a couple of hours. So we're going to put out a lot of chairs there. Hopefully the weather won't be too bad. I think in 2009 we had drizzle, but hopefully it won't be too bad. And you all can sit there. It's only going to be about 30 minutes. It'll be a very brief presentation. And get in there and see all the things open from 5 o'clock all day. And you can see, if the bush is a little bit crowded at the beginning, you can see the Nimitz Gallery in the hotel, and then go down the Pacific Combat Zone and spend the day coming in and out. And you can see all the wonderful things that we've done. We'll have special docents in there that answer any of your questions. We'll have discovery tables in there too, where we've pulled out some small artifacts and answer all of your questions. So it's the Christmas time. Some of you may have some family around, because remember, the day before is the parade. So you may have lots of family looking for something to do in the morning, or sometime during the day after lunch, you're looking at how to walk off some of that food. It may be a fun thing to do. So we encourage you to come out to see us. Because on Sunday, the next week, we're going to hit you. So anyway, but you know it's for a good reason. Oh, well, December, that's a good point. And that's a great point. That was our original date, and that would have been Sunday. Oh, it would have been perfect, December 7th. There was one issue, was that we do our Pearl Harbor commemoration program, so it would have been a little bit of a conflict there. And then we thought, well, are people who are going to be here all on Friday and they're going to be here Saturday, are they going to start to leave Sunday? So we thought we'd get the most amount of people on that Saturday that we here Friday to get into the museum. And so we wanted to have the maximum exposure to as many people as possible on that Saturday. But yeah, that was our original date. So you think the same way. But then we thought, we might get more people on Saturday. Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks again. Thank you. All right. Just a quick recap on a October 7th council meeting. We had an appointment of J. Gordon Browning to a seat on the Market Square Redevelopment Commission. The council also nominated Graham Pearson, who's with us today, and Jill Tabor for a seat on the Gillespie County Central Appraisal District Board. The council also had a public hearing for the subdivision development, phase 2 of a subdivision development. I see some people smiling. Along Homegg Lane. You may read about some of this in the newspaper today. It's a project, so far a 2-phase project. The first subdivision development has been completed. How many homes are in that first section? About 50 homes. The second phase will include about 135. So it's quite a bit bigger. The council is hearing from residents regarding traffic issues, primarily and drainage issues at this point. So we hope to work through all those, but there was a public hearing, actually 3 public hearings and 1 on the 7th. Coming up on the council meeting next Tuesday, the 21st, the council will be making a decision whether or not to annex that property, designate land use and zoning. So a lot to consider between now and then. Again, I see the council really listening to the residents, really listening to the developer, trying to figure out exactly how to proceed forward with that. So I talked a little bit about special meetings coming up. We have a number of topics we would like to discuss with the council between now and the end of the year or into early next year. Fire EMS, and I've talked about this a little bit before. Fire EMS is getting increasingly busier. Our call numbers continue to go up. We continue to see that call volume increase, especially out in the county where our response times are very long. You've heard us say before that 85% of the calls that come through are medically related. We spend about 80% of our time responding to the 20% of calls that we get out in the county, and that percentage is going up. So a joint meeting between the City Council and the County Commissioners to talk about what the 5-year outlook for fire EMS, EMS in particular, looks like. Getting EMS out into the county closer to where these accidents are happening so that those response times can be shortened. We're not exactly sure what the county's position is on this. It will be driven by the county, likely. If there's a special taxing district that is established, an emergency service district that's established, that would be county driven, but I want to open that conversation. Managed parking on Main Street. We've been talking about this for a long time as well. You've heard me talk about trying to relieve your property tax burden and get a little bit more from our visitors. Instead of getting a lot more from you, getting a little bit more from a lot more visitors. This is one of the ways to do that. I think the council's interested in hearing from staff, maybe seeing a demonstration by a vendor, learning what other cities are doing, successes and failures, maybe start a pilot program somewhere. PD has actually started a program in no parking zones off of Main Street that are being monitored by similar equipment, and that seems to be working well right now. But managed parking is another major topic, I'm calling it. And then finally, our strategic plan. I've talked about this a lot. We recently completed our comprehensive plan. It's a very broad, community-driven plan. Strategic plan is really taking those strategic initiatives or those initiatives out of that comp plan and putting them into a strategic plan, an action plan. I'm calling it a rolling strategic plan. It's updated every year with projects and initiatives. As council changes, we have that consistency. So we'll be talking about developing a strategic plan. Other topics include Main Street, First Street, and/or Main Street designation. Transportation projects. You've heard us talk a lot about transportation projects. There are 4 in particular that we're looking at: Moore Street extension, Cherry Street extension, Frederick Road extension, and then Friendship Lane extension. So over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, we've been making our way around town, having town hall meetings, second round of town hall meetings, starting with the neighborhoods that are the most affected by these projects. 2 in particular, the Moore Street extension and the South Cherry Street extension project. We have worked and visited with communities on the western side of the city. Now we need to go to the eastern side, and I'm looking at Graham. I'd like to schedule the next town hall in your neighborhood. And it's interesting, even these roads running right through the middle of these neighborhoods, you have people that have lived here all their life, 4th generation Fredericksburg folks, that say, we might not like it, but we understand it's needed, it's going to help us. We understand the city's growing, that's not a bad thing. So they generally support the project. We have some people that are adamantly opposed at the same time. So that's the feedback we want, positive and negative. So we can provide that to the council and they can decide whether or not to move forward with these projects. Bulk trash pickup. Something we have not done in the past. For the first time ever, the council has approved a charge for brush and leaf pickup. We're going to discuss exactly what that monthly fee is going to be. It will start in January. That's a service that we've provided for free in the past. We're looking at $10 a month charge for that. There is a cost associated with providing that service. We're at the point where we can no longer do that. But along with that, we're looking at a bulk waste pickup program. I don't know if this is maybe going to be once a year, twice a year, but if you have large items that you don't want to take out to the landfill, we divide the town up. When it is your area, when we get to your area, you can move those items to the curb. We'll pick those up, likely free of charge as part of that overall program. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about various ordinance amendments. We have some problems around town. People getting around our noise ordinance. We have a list of 6 or 7 different ordinances that we want to visit with the council about, amending slightly, a few new ordinances coming up as well. Unified Development Code. This is something that our Development Services Department has been planning on getting done for a long time. It will make more efficient and just transform the development process, subdivision and other types of development. Alcohol on Main Street. The mayor mentioned earlier this year when this came up in front of council that he was committed to sitting down with different groups of folks to get a better understanding of the issues related to sale of alcohol on Main Street, late hours operation of bars on Main Street, everything to do with alcohol on Main Street. We're going to do that and we're going to discuss that. And then finally, water conservation. We'll continue to talk about that. One exciting item to note is the council did approve a public works education position in the budget this year, and they will largely be involved in water education in schools and all throughout the community. So this continues to be an issue, one that we're not concerned that we're running out of water. We're just trying to provide people with the tools so that they know better really what that looks like and how you can help us continue to conserve water. So even if you have plenty, I think the narrative across the state, and I've been saying this a lot too, even if you have plenty, you should be conserving water. When you look at the state population growth versus the water supply, there's really not enough. For small communities like us, we're not growing that quickly. But for other communities, along I-35, there's some good examples. They truly are running out. So even if you have enough, you need to be conserving. That's what we've been doing. And thank you for doing that. Those are my updates, Sean, unless you or Garrett have anything to add. Hot applications, Sean, you want to?
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. The council has set aside some money for local nonprofits that comes through our hotel occupancy tax. So that process will kick off on November 5th with an orientation meeting. So if you're part of a local nonprofit that would like to request those grant funds, that meeting will be at the fire training room at the current City Hall, November 5th at 5 p.m., and you can learn all about that process. Those funds will be used to promote events in the 2026 calendar year. So we changed that process last year and got on a more streamlined timeline. So November 5th at 5 p.m. if you're interested in learning more about that process. Just a couple upcoming special events. Best Fest this weekend. The Fredericksburg Food and Wine Festival kicks off on October 21st, and then its market plots events are on the 25th and 26th, and then our Parks and Rec department, along with the Pioneer Museum, puts on the St. Martin's Day scavenger hunt coming up on November 11th.
Okay, thank you, Sean. So questions, I'm going to start over here. If you have a question, a comment, a special speaker request, I'm going to go around. If you would ask your questions, let us know if you have a special speaker. I'll start with Don.
What were the numbers this year for, how was the attendance numbers for Oktoberfest?
Oktoberfest, we don't have the official attendance numbers from the event organizer, but we did geofence the area, and was it 37,000 people? And we can determine how long a person stays on the square, but how does that compare, Sean, to the last couple of years?
It was down a little bit from last year, but up a little bit from 2023. So it's generally been between 34 and 38,000 people according to that geofence data.
And I laid a piece of paper on all the tables about dog waste. What I would ask, and I've talked to city about it a little bit, is we don't need another sign, evidently. But what I would ask everyone is that when you have these town hall meetings, this isn't you speaking, this is an ordinance. And it isn't the tourists that are coming to town with their dogs and creating this problem. It's in your neighborhood. I can provide 8x10 color glossies in the street and everything else if you'd like it. And it isn't so much about the fact that it's maybe a bad thing right now, but my neighborhood, for instance, and I'm over in the Cross Mountain area, we have a lot of young families with strollers and everything else. They're dodging this stuff in the street. The gentleman sitting next to me here, he has his yard even signed to respect his yard, and it's amazing how much happens in that yard. And it's an ongoing thing. So these are things that, if it's an ordinance, it's already in place. Don't go and cry to the city. Go ahead in a town hall meeting, just bring it up, because again, it's not you complaining, it's an ordinance, and it's not a good one. I mean, this is really not a happy place to do this, and it's growing. As Clinton says, our city's growing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for everybody, but we need to take all these things that have been acted upon in the past and enforce them. So that's it.
Thank you, Don.
Okay. I will say that when Mary and I go for a walk and it's getting darker and darker, we both have flashlights and we're both looking down at the ground. And we go up Cherry and we go around But the reason why we have the flashlights is not to look out for snakes. It's so we don't step in the dog poop. So for Clinton, for next week, if we're going to really talk about annexing that part on the south side of Friendship, and I brought it up in the meeting last time, I really think it should be serious. You should go to the school board and make sure that the school board is not concerned with the way you have not provided for kids to get across that street. Currently, there's no way I understand it. There's no stoplight planned, and I promote the Watchdog program. I've been watching these kids. 6th graders are leaving that door and blindly going across in front of cars, and the whole traffic situation and the kids leaving school. And if you put a bunch of kids on the other side of that street, you better provide for them, or it's a big risk for the city. And I would ask the school board to weigh in on that before next week.
That's something that we're also concerned about, George. In some of the first meetings we had with the developer, that was on the list of concerns that we had for them.
Right up there with the water.
Right. Right.
Speaking of Friendship and the school, is there going to be schools? You've got temporary school zone signs up. The ones going on from east to west, when there's a school zone sign before you get to, I think, Adams Street. But right immediately on the other side of the school zone sign, there's a 40-mile-an-hour sign, and you go around the curve, there's another 40-mile-an-hour sign. So there needs to be something done about the signage down in that area, because I think it's sending some confusing messages. And secondly, has there been any other discussion about Friendship? We all know that that Friendship is one of the busiest streets in the city now. About any proposed turn lane with the developments on Friendship, what's in the pike as far as that goes?
So I'll start with the signage for the school zone. We did move some equipment over there, not the permanent equipment. I believe the permanent equipment has been delivered, and we're beginning to make those changes, so it should be fully covered in terms of the proper signage within that zone, side streets. All of that should be completed here pretty quickly.
Are they going to move the signs that they've got on Lano Street?
Can you answer that, Garrett?
Flashing signs, can you move those?
TxDOT has to remove those, so it's on their schedule.
Okay, for your.
As far as Friendship lane improvement, center turn lane, traffic signals, we did have a traffic impact analysis completed for Friendship lane end to end. It made a lot of recommendations based on growth. We're starting to see some of that happen. That'll be another one of the major items we continue to talk to council about, is how to improve those intersections, how to improve Friendship lane in general to keep it as safe as possible. So we haven't started those conversations yet, but the development is coming. That's what Friendship lane was built for. It's been predominantly vacant land for a long time. We're starting to see it take shape now. So that will be part of a bigger conversation coming up over the next couple of years.
Speaking of the trouble with Friendship Lane, the school zone, and all of that, when you're using Sonoma Street, and this is going to be a problem eventually, you're coming out Sonoma Street to Friendship. The people that live in the 1846 apartments do not look, do not stop. So somewhere, somebody is going to get seriously hurt unless there is something done about either the people on Sonoma Street or the 1846 apartments.
We will monitor that. Thanks for letting us know.
I don't know if anyone else saw it yesterday afternoon, but I got a quick blip on my phone late in the afternoon that said that a burn ban had been enacted. Did anybody else see that?
Yes, it was enacted. The Commissioners Court took action on that yesterday during their regular meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Clint, just wondering what's happening with Turner Hall. It seems like there's no site work or anything going on up there.
No plans for Turner Hall currently. That's all I can tell you. I think the council at some point wants to talk about city properties in general. We own a number of city properties around town that are not being utilized. That would fit into that discussion, but no plans for Turner Hall currently. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just full of questions and comments today. So to your point, Tom, on Friendship Lane and yours, George, I noticed that they put this is your speed sign up with the posted speed. Literally a black truck passed me at 55 mile an hour, according to that sign last week. At a minimum, it seems like we should have at least a city patrol unit, maybe at Stadium Drive in Friendship when school's getting out and coming in. I think, in all honesty, this was very poor planning by whoever was arranging for that school to be there, because that was a known problem 5-10 years ago, and we knew these developments were coming. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Brenda Cole, I live in the city. I have comment about the animal waste. A lot of it, at least in my neighborhood, is fox. We are overrun by fox. I see 3 or 4 every night when I go out. And so I'm not worried about them myself, but they do, they're a part it's going to look a lot like a small dog, their waste. So that's just a comment. Watering. You said to us before that individual households use about 60% of the water usage in this town. But yet the city has yet to try to come up with a change in the plant height requirements. Many native grasses are well exceed the 12-inch limit. So until you address that issue, those of us that are interested in going to native plant materials in our lawns, we can't do it. So I think that should be a priority.
Good news for you.
Yay.
So I had our code enforcement department draft up a policy for native areas. And that is currently in our development services department. They're reviewing that. We hope to have that policy in place next year. So if you have an area that you want to go native, we have all of the guidelines for the different plants, maintaining that, watering that, and so forth. So we heard that from a couple of town halls. I know you were at one of those. We've heard that from a number of people around town. So we developed that policy. We'll probably roll that out in full force next year.
Is there a place that I can see the proposed?
I can share that with you if you want to just see the application process and the policy itself. Email me and I'll email it to you.
I can't look up your email online. For some reason, my computer setup doesn't allow me to see your email. I'll come and get it from you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for the great meeting. And I would like to ask, you know, at Chick-fil-A, there's at that corner, that was sold by Biederman. There's a new building being built. And what is that?
I believe it's a Discount Tire.
Discount Tire. Okay, thank you. And then do you want to try? We'd also like to introduce a new business in town, Christina Hush. She's got pickle. You'll see some flyers on here. It's called Pickle House Social. So Christina.
Sorry guys, it's a little off from a lot of the topics that we just had today, but we have launched our indoor pickleball courts out here off of 290 west of downtown, and we'd just love for you guys to come by and join. If you guys like pickleball, feel free. If you're new to pickleball, please come out and play. Really trying to get a great community going out there. And if you don't know, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the U.S., so open for you guys to come out. I'll be out there this morning, even if you want to come out and take a look at the facility. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? This table here, anyone? Okay, well, thank you for being here. Have a great rest of the week. We'll see you in about a month. Thank you.